Okay, hello. Thanks. So my name is Dan Michael. I'm from the University of Oslo Library in Norway, so please excuse my Norwegian accent. I'm not employed as a developer, but I do a bit of coding whenever there is time for it. And these are some of my colleagues, and they are quite happy. And one thing that makes me happy is to have everything under version control. So I tried to put the Alma letters under version control. For those who are not familiar with it, the letters are XSLT files in Alma that are used to format everything that is either printed from Alma or sent on email or SMS. So what I wanted to share with you today is a small tool I made to make it a little bit less painful to manage letters and slips in Alma. And it can be a little bit painful to work with these XSLT files. So the first thing we have to start with is the why question. I won't go into much detail since this is Developers Day, but I think there are good reasons to spend some time on customizing this. When it comes to the slips, the defaults contained a lot of information. Some of them didn't print on a single page, they printed on multiple pages. Some of them had multiple barcodes, so you had to make sure to scan the right one. So I tried to remove as much information as possible, and then sometimes someone complained and I added it back. And I also had to add some information because there was some information missing. Yeah, in the beginning everyone went, even though they had a slip, they had to go into Alma to check just if there was some information missing. When it comes to the letters, I think it's important that they communicate well. In general, we spend more and more time on trying to make the library this friendly space where you feel welcome and you get the help you want. We wanted to align the communication from Alma a little bit better with how we communicate with users in other channels and in real life. So we wanted to make the letters a little bit less formal, both in language and style. So once you start upon working with the letters, you discover there are also some challenges. First of all, there's lots of files. This is not that much of a problem because many of the letters are not used or used so little that you don't have to focus on them. But a little bit worse is that the letters can only be edited inside the Alma user interface. At least that's for the cloud solution we use. There's no file transfer protocol or other API support. In general, there are lots of good APIs with Alma, but not for the letters. And there's no way to search through all the files. So if you want to make, for instance, a change to a template, you want to know which letters use that template, but that can be a bit hard. And if we really start to make more than just a few trivial changes to the letters, we need to be able to also keep update with the default versions when they change. So we can follow the release notes, but maybe not everything is there. So that is a challenge. And how do we keep track of our own changes? And ideally, we also want a way to test the letters a little bit easier. So yeah, this is just the editing interface inside Alma, if you haven't seen it. So I definitely didn't find the solution, but I made a small tool, which is my helping hand when I work with the letters. It's a Python tool, so you can install it with pip from GitHub, or PyP. The first time you set it up, you start with an empty folder with a small configuration file. And there are instructions in the README on what you need to put there. It supports a few different authentication options, but it might not support yours if you have a special authentication provider. If you want to work with or try it yourself and you find that it doesn't work, feel free to raise an issue on GitHub or talk with me in the break. I'm happy to add more support for more providers. And then when you have set up the configuration file, you can start the command. I didn't dare to do this live, and it also can be a bit slow sometimes. So I run the slipsomat command, and it uses Selenium to automate the communication with the browser. And then I have the pull command that pulls in all the letters. And this takes a lot of time, so I speeded up the video to get us through this. So yeah, this is what happens when you don't have an API. So once this is done, we now have 114 XSLT files in our own folder. And this is great, because now we can add these to Git or something else, and we can search through all the files and make bulk edits. And we have made our letters available on GitHub, so you can see there. Some of the commits are in Norwegian, some in English. So, anyways, to avoid having to pull in all the letters each time, the tool creates or it maintains a status file that keeps track of the state of the repository. So it contains checksums for the local and remote version of the letters and the modification dates. So the next time we, at some point later in time, we want to pull in the changes, it opens as few letters as possible. And the reason we have to pull in letters at all is because some users will prefer to continue working within the Alma user interface. Because not everyone that are experts at Alma are comfortable working at the command line and with Git. So some users can make some small changes inside Alma, and then I can go and pull in the changes, pull in their changes, and commit them to Git at a later point. So in this example, there was also a new letter that because there had been a new Alma release in the meantime. So there was a new letter, and then 2 letters had changed. And now we can check the status, and we can see what actually changed in the letter, which is nice. And in this case, someone just made improvement to the text. So before it was a little bit brief, and now it's a little bit better explained in one of the letters. So then I could go ahead and add this to the repository and commit it. And this multilingual template is also something I added to make it a little bit easier to work with 3 languages. We have to maintain our letters in Norwegian, bokmål, nynorsk, and English. There is a system in Alma to work with labels, but it's a little bit limited. It requires a lot of clicking, and it doesn't allow you to add new labels. So I found myself reusing some labels for a completely different purpose. And at that point, I made this template instead. Whenever there is a new Alma release, you have to pull in, check if there are changes to the default letters. That takes more time because there is no timestamp in the table for the default versions. So it has to open every single letter and check. But this is something you only have to do after a new release. And in this case, it was 1 new letter and 5 with some modifications. And then you could go ahead and see what actually changed by doing git diff. So, yeah, a quick demonstration of how I work when I make a change. Then I open my editor and the letter that I want to edit. In this example, there was one field that was missing. I discovered that there was a field called book volume that wasn't on the resource letter. So I add that while slipsomat is starting. Then I can, I also made a small expansion to an abbreviation. then I can go back to slipsomat and use the push command to push the local file into Alma. And it sees that there is one modified file, and it pushes it. And then you can go ahead and, yeah, now it has updated the status file, so we will add both the status file and the letter to our Git commit. Small mistake there. Forgot to add files before I committed. So after this, I will show you finally the testing part. Because in Alma there is a way to test letters using the notification template feature under general configuration. But that involves a lot of clicking again, and especially when you want to test in multiple languages, it's a bit cumbersome. So I made a test command, and it supports wildcards and multiple languages. So I've specified here I want to test in English, Norwegian bokmål, and Norwegian nynorsk, and 2 different letters. So 2 different letters in 3 languages, that is 6 tests. And then it creates screenshots of the results and store it in the local folder. So then you can easily check the screenshots and compare them. And this inspection is still manual, but it still saves me a lot of time. And I can also then send the screenshots to my colleagues. So after 2 years of using slipsomat, I was a bit worried about it would break with every Alma release, since it's a little bit brittle to do these kinds of things. It hasn't been so bad. Most of the time it has worked. It's been a little bit worse with Selenium, or browser updates. And yeah, not so joyful. And then I had to learn that, I mean, I have a background as a web developer, so I knew that I'm familiar with differences between browsers, but I haven't been working with HTML for email, which is a little bit worse. So to make a decent looking template, you can quickly end up resorting to some very ugly techniques from the past. But there is some help, so you just have to sell your soul and shrug a bit. Yeah, I have some more tips in the README, so if this is something you want to check out, you can go there, and please talk to me in the break. Yeah, and lots of ideas on IDs exchange for improvements. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. We have a couple of minutes for quick questions. 1 minute, actually, so anybody? You're waving, or? Okay. No questions? All right, then. Thank you, Dan.